All right, today we are going to talk about color and swatches in Illustrator. One of the benefits of using the swatches panel more effectively is it's going to help you be a more efficient artist and designer. When we're doing the swatches panel, this is kind of our default view, and you see that mine was a little bigger, and I'm going to show you how you change that. The swatches comes with some defaults automatically, but we want to learn how we can use it to its full advantage, manipulate colors, change colors, use something called global colors. I've got lots of neat things I'm going to show you that's going to help you be more efficient. I've given you 6 exercises that you're going to complete to really kind of help you learn more about your swatches panel. First, let's make sure that you have your swatches panel pulled up. We're under the window menu, and we're going to go down and choose swatches to make sure that that is open and available for us. The other good one to have open for today is the color panel. And again, that's under the window menu. And remember, everything is alphabetical. I have mine already set here. Remember that we talked earlier about the fact that you can create your own workspace, and Scales has her own workspace. And one of the things that's a part of my workspace is having swatches and color as collapsed panels. First and foremost, we're going to start by how do we create a swatch? So I'm going to show you some basics, and then we're going to go through the exercises. In order to create a swatch, I usually like to start with my color picker, which is down here at the bottom, and I like to start with my fill. And you can choose any of these colors that you want to. It's always going to default to HSB colors, which I like the look of this. This is my preferred method. However, you can switch to RGB and get a slightly different type of color picker. Most students don't really love this viewpoint, so I always suggest staying on the HSB color. Web colors shows you just those index colors that we talked about earlier. So that's only going to be the 256 colors. So you can see it's very limited colors. Some, again, prefer this view just because it's a little easier to pick colors when you have less choices, but I think that's a personal choice. In here, you can change your HSB colors, your RGB colors, and your CMY colors manually. You also have the ability to change what's called your hexadecimal color. Every time you change into a color, it's going to change names. And this is in code, usually with numbers and letters. Most of the time, it's always going to be 6 colors or 6 letters, or number combinations. And each color has its own unique code. A lot of the times we end up just using these codes because they're easier to share that information than trying to give all the percentages or the number for RGB or CMYK. So once you have your color chosen that you like, if you'll notice that the color, sorry, there was a bell. If you notice that the color of the swatches has changed up here, you can now add to swatches a couple of ways. You can hit the plus sign at the bottom of the swatches panel. Okay. You can name your swatch if you'd like to. You can also change it from CMYK to RGB if you would like to, even to grayscale. And that way you have the ability to manipulate the colors in any form of color that you wish. Remember that CMYK is best for printing, RGB is best for displaying on screens. But once you've done this, you're just going to say okay. And then it's going to go right here as a thumbnail. And the beautiful thing about this is you can open this color up and you can double click on it at any time and you can check it off. You can change things, you can adjust things, and it'll automatically resave that swatch. The other way you can do it is up here in the panel menu, and you can say new swatch here, or my preferred method is just dragging and hitting until you see that little plus sign. To delete a swatch, we're going to come down here and there's the trash can, and I can say delete swatch. I also have this option which allows me to make a folder of colors or a group of folders. This is going to give me my swatches option. So if I wanted to not double click, I could just click on a swatch and then come down here. But I think double clicking is more efficient. You also, where you can group your swatches, you can say just colors if you wanted to. You can show just your gradient swatches or just your pattern swatches or all your groups. I like to leave it on all because that's my preferred way. You can also click this to say if you have a set group of colors, particular swatches that you work with regularly, you can click this option and add it to your library, which is going to be accessible in all of your applications. This panel right here allows you to open up Adobe color themes. Themes are a really great opportunity to look through things where colors have already been created and things like that. I don't have options to this just because it's a Wake County thing, but if you have a regular version, you should be able to access the Adobe. The last thing that's really convenient are the Adobe the library of colors. And in here, you can look through all the different gradients. You have different color book options like Pantone. You have where you can just pull up a set of dark colors if you would like to. And the beautiful thing about these is if you find one that you really like, and we'll go to this pop art, and I click here, it'll automatically add it to my swatches panel for me to access later. If you decide you don't like that, you just go to the trash can to remove that group of swatches. In the panel up here as well, you do have the ability to change from small thumbnail to medium to large view. That's a newer option, which is quite nice. You also have the small list view, which is a list of all of the colors in order. And then it also names the colors. The little symbol here next to it, and I can open these or collapse these, is going to show me whether it's a CMYK color or not. And then I also can go to the large list view. Personally, I like this thumbnail view. When I'm working with color a little bit more, I tend to default to the medium view. Again, that's a personal choice, but I did want you to know how to change it, which is going to come in handy on number 5. First, we're going to start by doing number 1. I do have some directions in here, but we're going to get a little bit more specific here in the video. I've given you an image to work with. It's just a piece of art. It's nothing special. It's just a very simple piece of art. And what we want to do is we're going to create a group of swatches, a global group of swatches from this image. When I go to my swatches, I can hit the folder option. Now, it's going to do from selected artwork. And when I do this, I'm also going to make sure this convert process to global is checked. Now, when it does this, it's not going to do anything. And I did that on purpose because I want you to see why. We have to image trace it first. This is a vector. This is not a vector image. It's a raster or a bitmap image. So we do have to do this first. So if you accidentally just start ahead and you forget to raster or image trace it first, I just wanted you to see what would happen. So I'm going to do 16 colors. If I do high fidelity or even low fidelity, I'm going to get too many colors for what I'm trying to do. I'm going to then expand it so that it's a true vector image that can be manipulated. And watch what happens this time. I'm going to click my thumb. I'm going to say from selected. I'm going to leave all this checked. So make sure yours looks like mine. And then this time I'm going to name it picture colors. And I'm going to say okay. And watch the difference. Now it's going to populate all of those swatches. Now let's talk about what global means. Global, and I'm going to zoom in here so you can really see my image here. And I'm going to click off of this. And you'll see it doesn't look that great. I didn't need it to look that great because I really just wanted the colors. But global color means that if I come in here, that's got this little white triangle here in the corner tells me it's a global color, which means let's say I decide that I no longer want this to be night or daytime and I want it to be nighttime. And what's really neat is if you click on a color, it will highlight that color for you in the swatches. So I've decided that I no longer want this to be a daytime scene. I want it to be a nighttime scene. So I'm going to double click here and I want to change my color. And I'm just going to drag down and add some black to that blue. Now watch what happens when I change the swatch. It's automatically going to change the artwork as well. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to darken this up. And it's going to change all of the places where that color existed. And I've got this extra piece of blue in here just because it was, and all of a sudden it's going to change. The great thing about this is let's say you have a large piece of artwork that has lots of colors like this and you create them as global colors. You now have the ability to adjust that color at will. Let's say I've added this swatch earlier and I want to make it a global color. I can just go back and make it a global color later. And then that way it's something I can manipulate. Sometimes this is a very simple thing that I'm doing, but sometimes I may have a very complicated and I don't want to have to change all 60 or 70 colors at will and have to make sure everything is selected. So instead, I sometimes will use my global swatches. So once we have that, we're going to take a screenshot and I'm going to go back to get the correct colors in my swatches here. And we're going to take a screenshot. I've included the directions for you on either Windows or Mac. For me, it is Command Shift number 4. And that's going to bring this targeted thing up. And I'm going to just select the area that I put that swatches group in and just drag and drop and just place that in that panel. And that's going to show me, I'm going to resize that a little, holding down my shift key. And that's all I'm looking for is to see the swatches as you intended me to see them. Sometimes when you save the worksheets, it will save the swatches, but then I have to launch them. And this is a much faster way for me to see it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create some swatches of gradients. I've asked you to create 3 gradient swatches using at least 3 colors. So we're going to go to our gradients panel. We're going to choose linear, and then we're just going to change these little sliders to create some gradients. So maybe I want to go back to my gradients and I want to choose and make a sunset gradient like we did on exercise number 1 on the gradients panel. So that way I don't have to make that anymore. And it's going to work the same way. When I go to the swatches, I can just drag and drop and it will create it right there, or I hit the plus sign. Once you have your 3 swatches in, again, just take a screenshot for me and show me. Pattern swatches. These are really, really neat. I'm going to move over here just so I have a little bit of room to work. One of the things that you can do is, let's say you have a pattern that you want to fill an object and you want to create something like these that's filled with a pattern. You can do that very easily in Adobe Illustrator. So if I wanted to create maybe a polka dot pattern, and I'm just going to create a series of dots, nothing crazy, just a little bit of a pattern. I used this the other day when I was drawing something, and I've got my little pattern here, and I can kind of rearrange it as I want to. But once I get it the way I want, I'm going to select all of these, and I'm just going to drag and drop into my swatches panel and watch what happens. Now, if I do a big circle, I can fill with that pattern. When I increase the size of this pattern is going to increase as well. If I make a very small circle and fill it, you'll see that the bigger I make the circle, the more of that pattern that shows. If you double click on that swatch, it's going to pull up your pattern options. It's not going to pull up a swatch option this time, it's a pattern option. And you can see I have some choices of changing the orientation about how it displays those. It can change the offset, like how close they are, how far apart they are, things like that. And I also can choose how many copies there are. So this is a really great a way to create plaids or stripes or things like that, something that doesn't exist maybe in the library here of patterns. So what I'd like you to do is just make me some type of pattern. And then for number 3, I just want you to fill an object with that pattern so I can see that you've done it. Number 4 is asking you to access the library panel, and I want you to find the one called Middle Ages and add that to your swatches and then take a screenshot to show me that you can add that collection of swatches to your swatches panel from the library. Number 5 is just showing me that you can switch from a grid view to a list view. And then the last one is number 6. I'm going to ask you to make a series of swatches. I've got hexadecimal, RGB, CMYK, K, which means we're going to change it to grayscale first. So I would come in here and come up here and change from regular to grayscale. So we're going to start with any color. Make sure you're not clicked on like I was. So we're going to start by making our first one. So I'm going to type in 6D2CE0. And I hit tab to activate the color, and then I can say okay. In here, I'm just going to make a new folder, and then I'm going to add my swatch to that folder. It's going to automatically go down here if I have that folder selected. If I don't, and it just kind of drags in normal, and you want to add and drag it, you can just grab it, and let me increase my size here so y'all can see. Just drag and drop it down. Easy peasy. Okay. So you're going to do CMYK. These are all separate colors. Then I'm going to come over here and type in RGB colors. They're right there. I'm going to type in CMYK for my next. K, it says change to grayscale in the color panel first. So I got to come over here to my color panel, and I'm going to drop down to grayscale, and then I can change to 67, go back to my swatches and add that in. And then you're going to do an HSB, and then I've got one other RGB for you to do. And then you're going to take a screenshot of that. And that is our color panel, or excuse me, our color and swatches worksheet in Illustrator. Again, I use this quite often, especially when I'm working on a particular color palette, so that I don't have to remember or write down those colors every time. That's a much more convenient way to keep track of your colors. Hopefully this has helped, and I look forward to the next lesson. Thanks.